Very good morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, I would like to congratulate SKK Migas and all the stakeholders in this upstream oil and gas industry for organizing the second international convention on Indonesia upstream oil and gas in 2021. This event hopefully can create a dynamic and productive discussion among all stakeholders and parties in the upstream oil and gas industry. The theme of this event, boosting investment into upstream oil and gas Indonesia, is very relevant and interesting, especially within the context of recovery of the economy, both domestically and globally, as well as the concern related to the climate change. I'm going to touch upon those issues. I would like to first update you with the most recent economic development. We are all witnessing that the COVID-19 pandemic has a very significant and fundamental impact to the global economy. Until now, all countries in the world are still actually scrambling to overcome the continued mutation of this COVID-19, including the most recent one. Despite that, Indonesia, Alhamdulillah, has already managed first the Delta variant surge last July until August, and currently we are at the lowest level in terms of the number of active as well as transmitted of this COVID-19 economy. Until now, all countries in the world are still actually scrambling to overcome the continued mutation of this COVID-19, including the most recent one. Despite that, Indonesia, Alhamdulillah, has already managed first the Delta variant surge last July until August, and currently we are at the lowest level in terms of the number of active as well as transmitted of this COVID-19. It doesn't mean that Indonesia complacent with this achievement. We are very vigilant and of course observing what is actually now happening in many parts of the world, with the increasing case or the new case mutation of the COVID-19 Omicron, which is coming from South Africa and now spreading to some countries, both in the West as well as in Asia. With this achievement, we do hope that the economic recovery in Indonesia will continue, especially on the fourth quarter of this year. We are expecting that the growth for the economy for this year will be between 3.5 to 4.0% in 2021. This is the performance due to, of course, the two very difficult quarters. That is the first quarter, when we also see the increasing cases post the Christmas as well as New Year last March, and then the second wave of the Delta variant this year between July to mid of August. With that in mind, Indonesia continue very optimistic in terms of the recovery process. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, yesterday President Jokowi has already handed in the DIPA, that is the budget document for all ministry as well as governor, for the budget 2022. This is going to be another or the third year of our budget that will continue support the economic recovery as well as handling the COVID challenges. For current year, the 2021 budget, which is only 1 month away to end, we are continue implementing the National Economic Recovery Program, or we call it the PEN, as well as executing the government budget in order for us to be able to recover in this fourth quarter. The implementation of the National Economic Recovery Program has reached 82.8% of the allocation, which is 575.85 has already being spent. In 2022, our fiscal will continue very supportive, very mindful that we are still facing with the most uncertainty with this COVID-19, but we are also at the same time make our best effort by accelerating vaccination as well as continue implementing a vigilant and strict health protocol. Within the context of COVID-19 and how we are going to recover the economy, the government of Indonesia continue also implementing very ambitious structural reform. This is due to the fact that Indonesia recognized in order for us to be able to recover stronger and with a better and sustainable growth, we need to address the issue of competitiveness. We need to address the issue of human capital quality, and we have to improve our productivity and innovation. All the effort made by the government in simplifying the investment climate, debureaucratize as well as simplifying regulation is also very, very, very relevant to this convention, especially on the upstream oil and gas industry. Let me now talk about the oil and gas sector within the context of very also relevant discussion in the last months about the climate change. After we finish, or in this case, ending the COP26 Glasgow meeting. If we talk about oil and gas in Indonesia, we also witnessing the lifting of oil and gas, which is continued decline. Oil and gas lifting in 2020 only reached to 707,000 barrels per day. And of course, if we also see the gas, it's also producing 983,000 barrel equivalent of oil per day. This is a much lower to the, of course, a decade or 2 decades ago. The downward production trend, especially in oil, has caused the widening gap between the need of the energy in Indonesia, whether in the form of fuel or electricity, which continue to increase, even despite this COVID, when we have a little bit decline on the demand. But for Indonesia, as an emerging country with big population and size of the economy among the 20th largest in the world, the demand for the fuel and energy will continue increase. The fact that our oil and gas production continue declining, creating a widening demand gap. And that's translated within the our macroeconomic situation, the trade balance and current account balance, which creating another weaknesses to the economy if we want to continue growing in a sustainable and stable way. So oil and gas definitely creating this challenging situation. On the other hand, we also recognize that the climate change has become a major concern and issue, which become also the priority of the policymaker all over the world. The increasing temperature of the world is threatening the people as well as the livelihood, and therefore the commitment to prevent the climate change by preventing increasing temperature of the world will also translate it or affect it directly to the oil and gas industry, which is perceived as the most important CO2 emitter in the world. Many discussions regarding how Indonesia and the world can transform into a net zero emission path is becoming very critical and definitely will affect oil and gas industry, because this is one of the area which is receiving huge attention from policymakers in the world. On this occasion, I would like to also convey the Indonesia own effort, both on the one hand, try to improve the production of oil and gas in order to reduce the deficit on the production or the demand gap, which creating vulnerability on our macroeconomic, especially on the current account deficit. On the other hand, we also have a very strong and clear commitment, especially from the president, which is translated into policy of how we are going to deliver our nationally determined commitment of reduction CO2. For the oil and gas, especially the upstream sector, there are currently in Indonesia 95 basins that has not been explored optimally. This definitely creating also a challenge on how we are going to be able to improve production. The government has already improved or encouraged the improvement on the investment as well as production of oil and gas. The fiscal policy, in this case, the fiscal tool using our tax as well as subsidy is becoming one of the most important, but not the only important policy to improve the investment and production climate for the upstream industry. The government in this case already implementing several changes in the policy. In the past, provided the production sharing contract, which is stipulated on government regulation number 79/2010. And then we also providing the cost recovery PSC within the context of government regulation number 53/2017 to facilitate PSC into from recovery to gross split. These two policies definitely providing a menu for the investor depending on their risk appetite. However, the implementation of this regulation has not yet achieving an optimal implication or impact to the production of oil and gas in Indonesia. The Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources just recently discussed with our Ministry of Finance to try to design the improvement of the fiscal terms, effort to improve the fiscal terms that need to be provided in order to provide a comprehensive policy reform related to the cost recovery, gross split, or in this taxation in general is still under the discussion. I would like to emphasize in this very important opportunity that boosting investment in oil and gas upstream industry certainly needs some fiscal support or incentive, but this is not the only factor. Certainty of the contract is going to be very critical. Efficiency and technology is also very critical. Good governance, transparency is also very critical, because we are talking about natural resources which we actually taken from this the earth that is in the Indonesia economy. We owe this to the next generation. So for us to be able to continue managing and establishing a robust, credible policy framework is going to be very critical. Ministry of Finance will support and working closely with the Ministry of Energy in order for us to be able to establish a sound policy framework that can be accountable as well as responsible, not only for the current generation, but also for the next generation. Now, within the context of climate change, this is going to be one of also another complication that need to be addressed when we are discussing about oil and gas industry. As you all know, the Indonesia has committed in the Paris Agreement that we are going to reduce carbon emission. Within the National Determined Contribution Commitment, Indonesia will reduce the CO2 emission as much as 29% with our own effort, unconditional, and 41% with the support of international. This commitment then has been translated into the working program. On the recent COP26 meeting in Glasgow, we even see the more ambitious target of reduction, the CO2 that can avoid the world to be suffering from increasing temperature above 1.5 degrees centigrade. So this is going to be a working environment for all of us to consider. Indonesia has already having a roadmap to achieve net zero emission by 2060 or earlier. This achievement especially have the relevant issue within this context of oil and gas industry. First, how we are going to increase and utilizing more renewable energy. The second one, how we are going to reduce the use of fossil fuel. And the third one is utilizing technology to reduce carbon emission. For example, by implementing carbon capture and storage. This three commitment definitely is not free. That will require a huge budget and investment, and not only coming from the government, but also from the private sector. So for Indonesia, designing the right energy transition is going to be very, very, very critical. On the one hand, how Indonesia can establish and maintain energy security. On the other hand, how Indonesia can fulfill and participate with the global collective effort to avoid climate change disaster. Within this context, the Ministry of Finance, working closely with the Ministry of Energy, we are working on one of the schemes which is currently being discussed, that is the energy transition mechanism. This is not only related to the coal, which is also another fossil fuel, but also on the oil and gas. We do hope within this conference, we are going to be able to get the view from all stakeholders, especially upstream industry on oil and gas, how Indonesia, with our own potential of oil and gas production still available, need to be optimized, but on the other hand, how we are going to be able to design a credible and sustainable transition toward more renewable energy. How we are going to be able to implement technology, which I know currently is not yet cheap, to be able to also continue using the fossil fuel, but with reduction of CO emission, as I mentioned, in terms of the carbon capture and storage. These are all the issues which I'm not going to claim that we in the Ministry of Finance know everything. We are willing to continue to listen and discuss in a very constructive way with not only Minister of Energy, but mostly with the industry.